Ich widerspreche auch diesem
Unterbrechen Sie meine Rede nicht. Ich erteile Ihnen einen zweiten Ordnungsruf.
Was Sie hier treiben, ist Machtergreifung.
It was these claims of a power grab in Thuringia's regional parliament that renewed calls to stop the far-right alternative for Germany. When the interim president, an AfD member, refused to call a vote, as protocol requires, his opponent said he was trying to overturn the will of the majority of the House. In the end, the court had to step in. Now, a group of lawmakers want the Constitutional Court to look at whether the AfD could be banned nationwide.
I want to check the constitutionality of a party. I wonder what democratic party is afraid of scrutiny. And I think it's important that we take our constitution, which speaks of a defence of democracy, seriously. And if there is enough evidence, then we are more or less required to take this step.
They point to Björn Höcke, arguably the most influential figure in the AfD. He has twice been convicted for using Nazi-era slogans while campaigning. They say the party as a whole demonises Muslims in breach of the constitutional duty to protect human dignity. They say the events in Thuringia underline the AfD's contempt for state institutions and democracy.
The behaviour of the AfD in the Thuringia State Parliament, where the Parliament wasn't able to proceed without the courts intervening, and many other points, make me realise that we must act before it's too late.
But the plan is opposed even by some of the AfD's rivals.
I want to say explicitly here that you cannot bend the AfD away, you can only govern the AfD away.
For the AfD leadership, the ban attempt shows how undemocratic the competition is.
And it also shows how divided the parties are, and not just on this issue. And that's why this proposal is doomed to fail.
In the wake of World War II, German leaders writing the Constitution, also known as the Basic Law, sought to prevent a political party from ever having the chance to overthrow democracy again.
The ban is clearly defined. Article 21 of the Basic Law also provides for it from the outset. It must be an active fight against the free democratic basic order, and it must be aimed at overthrowing the political system.
And it's actually been done. In the 1950s, the Nazi successor SRP party and the communist KPD parties were banned. But more recently, an attempt to ban the neo-Nazi NPD party failed on the grounds they were irrelevant. So any move to ban the AfD is fraught with legal hurdles and political risk, with some concerned it will only serve to strengthen the party. Till Steffen from the Greens, you are one of the people who supports this initiation to look into whether the AfD should be banned as a party. Just tell me why you are in favour of this motion.
I'm convinced that the AfD is an extremist party who will endanger our democracy. And if we wait too long, that's the historical experience, then it will be too late to have this instrument of defensive democracy. And so we say, let's do a duty and send this file to Constitutional Court in order that they can approve or disapprove this file.
Why now? The AfD is doing really well in regional elections in Germany recently and is high in the polls. Was there something that triggered this move?
There are many occasions where the AfD decided to go more and more into the extremist direction. And the thing is that they see that there is no limit for their activity, and so they go farther and farther to the extremist edge, so to say, and they have no limitation, and they radicalize many more people every day they act. So the longer we wait, the more damage will be done by this party.
We're talking about Article 21 of the Basic Law, which says that you can ban a political party if they or their supporters seek to overthrow democracy and the German government. And I wonder, what evidence do you have that the AfD is doing that?
We have that very important court decision of the court in Münster. They had to decide about the decision of the Secret Service in order to have a surveillance on this party. And they discussed the question if there is the concept of remigration, of sending people with migration background to other countries, even if they are German citizens. And this decision made very clear that that is deep-rooted in the AfD party. That, of course, is one of the pillars, but at the same time we see that they attack democracy, they attack parliaments, as we have seen in Thuringia, and they attack the court system because they say that they will exchange judges in order that there is prosecution of political enemies. And that, of course, is a big danger if a party is talking about using the judges, using the courts in order to extend the political power. That's what we have to be aware of, and that tells us that we have to act now.
Your kind of opponents, if you like, people who disagree with this motion, there are people in the Parliament who think that the timing is not right or that the case is not strong enough. And I would say there are really two aspects to it. There's the political and there's the legal. What do you say to people who say that this is politically not the right approach because you should try to beat the AfD with arguments that show the voters that you have answers to the problems that they're concerned about? What do you say to those people?
I think we tried for many, many years to go the way to beat with arguments. We have to go on with that because, of course, we want to convince the people that that is not the right decision to vote for a party like that. But at the same time, we have to be aware that many people are supporting this party, and if we will let this party act in parliaments, they will damage the democracy, they will damage the legal system, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to take the discussion with the people at the same time, so it's no contradiction, we have to do it at the same time.
And this German public was asked about this as well recently, and it was quite split. I was struck. It was 46% were against this idea of initiating proceedings against the AfD and 42 were for. And I wonder, is there a risk that if this motion isn't successful ultimately, that it strengthens the AfD?
The AfD is always telling that they are a victim. It's quite popular with right-wing parties or for nationalists to say we are a victim, so we have to defend ourselves and to have a reason for aggression. So it's the pattern that we see at many points, not only in Germany. And of course they will go on telling that. But those people who can be convinced with this argument, they vote for the AfD anyway, and many more people, they are afraid of the AfD, and they want that we do something. Of course, people do not totally agree about what to do, but if we take out the supporters of the AfD, then we have a majority to go in this proceeding that the Constitutional Court will decide if this party must be banned or not.
In German history, there were two occasions where parties were banned. They were in the 1950s. One was a communist party. The other was a follower-on party from the Nazis. It was called the SRP. What lessons have you taken from those experiences for your motion?
The historical experience is that we were only be able to build this democracy in Germany with having banned the NSDAP in advance. And the designers of the Grundgesetz, they were clear that we need to have a measure like that in order to ban other parties who could be similar or in another way dangerous. And the SRP was really a Nazi party. And if we look at the AfD now, of course, there are different people in this party, but the dominant majority, they are following the course of Björn Höcke, who is really, in fact, a Nazi. I'm convinced. And if we let them go on, then we will have, of course, they look different than in the 30s and in the 40s, the Nazis. But we have, in fact, a party which is following the same way.
Are you concerned that a ban could radicalise that chunk of voters who maybe aren't right-wing extremists, who feel that they have just genuine concerns about Germany? Are you concerned at all that this could radicalise those people?
Those proceedings are against the party, not the voters. They may vote still, and they may vote for other parties, perhaps new parties who could be founded. But we make clear that it's no acceptable idea to vote for an extremist party if you have serious concerns that you might have.
You've got to convince your colleagues in Parliament that this is a motion worth backing. What's your message to them? What's at stake?
I think the members of Parliament, they have a duty to think about this question very carefully. No one can say anyone else should do this job. We have to do this job. We have to come to a decision about the question we make clear in this motion. And so I'm convinced that in the many talks we are having in the moment, that many of my colleagues are making up their mind. And so I see a good chance that we have a majority finally and to send this file to the Constitutional Court.
And if it doesn't, does that harm your case?
I think hopefully there will be further opportunities to send a file to the Constitutional Court. We cannot be sure, of course. We don't know what the future will bring. But I think even this discussion makes clear what are the questions, when will we have to decide then. And so I think it's in any case a good idea that we had this initiative in order to have this debate in Parliament, so we are ready to act if the majority is.
Steffen from the Greens, thank you very much for your time. Cheers, thank you. I'm now joined by Zimmermann from the Social Democrats here in the Bundestag. He is against the motion, and I'm going to find out why. Just tell me what your position is. Why will you not support the motion?
Yes, first of all, I'm absolutely in favor of banning this party because I think they are working against democracy and against the Constitution. But we have to face the facts. The Supreme Court, the Bundesverfassungsgericht in Karlsruhe, they ruled on the NPD ban, and they give us clear standards that have to be met. And at this point, unfortunately, we think that these standards are not met. So if we would, out of the emotion, now vote for this ban, we would feel great for a couple of weeks or months. But I have the feeling, and many members also of the Social Democratic Parliamentary Party think it is simply now not the right moment to do that. That means there will be definitely an opportunity in the future, because we think when we go this way, it needs to fit, and we have to make sure that this will stand in Karlsruhe. That's why we think right now is the wrong moment.
I would like to put a quote to you from Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister under Adolf Hitler. Back then he said, and I quote, "We are not coming as friends, not even as neutrals. We come as enemies, like the wolf breaking into the flock of sheep. That's how we come." And that was then kind of considered evidence of his intentions to overthrow democracy. In 2018, Björn Höcke, one of the most influential figures in the AfD, had this to say, quote, "Today the question is sheep or wolf. And I, dear friends, think that we decide on this question, wolf. Is it not time to ban this party?"
Yes, it is. And there have been many court rulings. I mean, I can legally call Björn Höcke a Nazi. That is for sure. But what Karlsruhe did, and you quoted, aggressively overthrowing democracy. And it's unfortunately, Karlsruhe said it's not single figures, single persons in that party. It must be in the structure. And we know until this moment that there are some state structures of the AfD which do not fit into that category. But what's also going to happen is there is a court ruling from the court in Münster, and the question is, will our intelligence services be allowed to survey the AfD? And we think they will say, yes, this will be allowed. And up until that moment, then there can be collected much more data. And I absolutely agree, they are ugly people at the top leadership of that party. But here I have to put my emotions aside. I have to go for the facts, and the facts are now saying, with the evidence we have right now, it is very unlikely that we will win a court case in Karlsruhe, and it would be devastating for democracy if the AfD would win a fight against the ban in Karlsruhe. And that's why we are saying we have to get to collect more evidence, then go to Karlsruhe and ban this party once and for all.
What do you say to people who are concerned that by banning a political party you might strengthen far-right extremism in Germany?
So it's for good reason that the standards on banning a party are extremely high. And I'm absolutely convinced that it is necessary. This can only be a matter of a last resort. And we know from a couple of years ago, people thought that banning the NPD, one other right-wing party, that would help and would solve the problem of right-wing extremism, but it didn't happen. So I'm convinced that we won't get rid of the general problem, but what I'm seeing now is that the AfD is using all the resources democracy gives a party, a parliamentary party, to fight against democracy, and at least it would help to take away all these state-sponsored resources from that party, and that's why I think it is a drastic move, but it is necessary at this moment.
Do you consider, because Germany's held up as a country, as a kind of blueprint for countries and democracies, especially with its post-war story, is there a concern as well that by banning a political party it could be used by people who maybe want to be dictators, if you like, who kind of look at Germany and they might ban the opposition and say, well, they do it in Germany, why can't we do it?
Yeah, the difference to countries who try to do things like that is that we have independent courts, you have to have a great majority here in the Bundestag, and we have all these liberal ways of also fighting against a ban. And that's a big, big difference to countries who simply try to ban the opposition. But I'm convinced that in these times, a liberal democracy also needs to fight against the enemies of liberal democracy. Because that's the irony. We give all this freedom out there, and our enemies use that freedom to work from within against democracy. So yes, it is a tricky situation, but I think we have the right processes in place to do that in a democratic way.
Jens Zimmermann from the Social Democrats, thank you very much.